As natural wood species go, redwood is in a class of its own. A sustainable alternative to tropical hardwoods, redwood is grown and harvested to the highest environmental standards in the world. Named for the dark red heartwood at the center of the tree, redwood imparts natural beauty, warmth, and durability to interior and exterior building applications, including decking, fencing, paneling, siding, exposed beams and timbers, pergolas, and other shade structures. To learn more about redwood from Humboldt Sawmill, please visit getredwood.com. Our next question comes from Jordan and Katherine, and I'm super excited about this one because it deals with Pittsburgh.
I wonder
so
why.
Here we go. Hey, podcast crew. My wife and I are moving from Denver, Colorado to the South Hills of Pittsburgh this summer. We're diehard DIYers, and we've slowly renovated our 1954 Denver ranch house over the last 5 years, making every feasible mistake and learning a ton in the process. We're new listeners to the FHB podcast and subscribers to the magazine, so our experience to good building science has been limited. We're looking to move into a fixer-upper in Pittsburgh and renovate the place as time and budget allow. Thanks to your advice, our first step will be to get an independent energy audit. There you go, Brian.
Yes.
Someone's listening. That's fantastic.
Wow.
We're looking for guidance, both general and specific. We know Patrick lived and built in Pittsburgh for many years, so we're helping for his advice. As we're shopping for our new old home, what features and characteristics would we seek out or avoid with the goal of an efficient, durable, and sustainable house post-renovation? So I asked them a number of questions, starting with how much tolerance do they have for living in a construction zone? Because I think if you're talking about a fixer-upper, we first need to figure out how much fixer-upper we're talking about. And then their priorities for a neighborhood. There's a lot of affordable houses in Pittsburgh, but they're often in places that have, a lot of derelict houses and other problems that inner city neighborhoods have. So they got back to me and they said, our tolerance for construction, we're looking for something habitable and safe right off the bat. We don't want to be camping in a fully gutted house. Other than that, we're prepared for the dust and inconvenience the renovation will generate. We don't have kids yet and plan to take our time with the renovation and do one room or section at a time. Tearing up walls and ceilings, replacing or repairing windows, all no problem. We don't care if it looks bad or if we're down a room or two as it gets worked on. Location has been our first priority. We've been tempted by some of the other areas of the city, but have close friends who have settled in Brookline. Our house in Denver is far from our friend group, and that's been a struggle at times. So we're looking for land. We're looking to land right near our friends around the Brookline, Dormont, Overbrook areas. We're lucky enough to have worked out remote arrangements with our current job, so we'll be working from home. Most places we've seen have been close to the T-Lines, which is Pittsburgh's kind of limited subway. So we're excited to ride downtown for drinks, ball games, etc. The majority of homes listed in the area were built between 1900 and 1960. Most are clad in brick or brick with vinyl over the upper story. We have no experience with brick houses, but we're looking forward to leaning on FHB for some good info there. We've spotted one slate roof that looks like it could use some minor repair, but we're optimistic we could learn to maintain something like that. We're keeping our eye out for overhangs, positive grade, and a basement that I can turn into a proper shop. If the mechanical systems are working fine, we don't anticipate replacing them until it makes sense to do so. We're assuming the place will be poorly insulated, so we plan to add insulation and control barriers to the exterior walls as we renovate the sections. Considerations and techniques for improving insulation, windows, and weather barriers in a brick-clad home in such a wet area could be greatly appreciated. I hope this provides enough background. Thanks so much, Jordan and Katherine. Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack here, but let's start easy here. Brian, what should one be most concerned about when buying a fixer-upper built in the first half of the 20th century in an urban setting? Ian, what would be most important to you buying a house built in the first half of the 20th century in an urban setting?
For me, and I speak from experience on this one, I would want to know if there are any zoning quirks to some of those pre-zoning areas in a city like Pittsburgh that are going to keep you from being able to do things that you want to do to the property. Do you actually own your driveway to get back to the house if you purchase a house that is set back off the road. Things that are hard to change like that is where I would start. And then the foundation is a big one, things that are expensive to change. But I would start with the zoning of the area you're looking to purchase in.
I'll go next because I'm going to be brief. I would say small. Buy a very small house. You'll pay less for it. It's less to maintain. The projects are smaller. Your taxes are less. Your utility bills are less. All things being equal, it is always going to be more affordable to be in a small house. And I would take the junkiest fixer-upper you could tolerate because whatever improvements have been made to the house, you're going to be paying for those in some fashion. And if you're willing to do the work, I would say do as much of it as you are able or willing to, and get the house you really want and use the experience to grow personally and get fit. And these folks seem to love working on houses, so why not work on houses?
You know, the hard part for me about this question is that I'm just imagining neighborhoods where there's not tons of variety to really kind of pinpoint the house, the kind of project that would be, best suited to what they're attempting here. But it did make you mentioned small, Patrick. I jotted down some things as you're reading the question, like uncomplicated. Single story or not crazy tall because you're do-it-yourselfer and you're going to be trying to work on this exterior and you want to be things to be doable and to be safe. I thought if you're going to be living in the project, if you choose a place that you can do a lot of the work from the outside, that's a big benefit. If the inside is occupied and you choose a place that you can do your, control layer work, your, insulating work, your water management work all from the outside, great. That's really smart. So I thought, all these kinds of things. And then obviously the big expensive stuff, he mentioned wanting a basement and can you find something where the basement isn't one of the problems you have to deal with? It has a dry basement.
Almost every basement in Pittsburgh is a problem.
Yeah, is a problem. Yeah. So, all that kind of stuff, would make sense to me if I was going to do the work myself. In any house that, I would also say what are your goals realistic for the type of construction that the house has now and what you're dealing with and what your budget is and what your abilities are. Everyone, we get so many questions, GBA is riddled with questions in the forum of I want to bring the area under my roof into the, thermal enclosure so that I can use that attic space for living space, but I don't want to lower the ceiling height. Well, you have to compromise. So is the project, can you make reasonable compromises? The existing houses are always going to be about compromises unless you have crazy budget and crazy time and ability. They're always going to be about compromises. So can you live with the compromises you're going to have to make, or live with the compromise you're going to have to make, whether that's compromising, what you're trying to attain from the space or your performance goals or whatever it might be.
One very weird thing specific to Pittsburgh and maybe other, places with housing of similar vintage, but specifically in the 50s and 60s, there is this fibrous sheathing. And if you have a brick-clad house, it's super vapor open. So when the brick is heated by the sun, you have this vapor drive toward the interior. And most of the houses in the Pittsburgh area are sufficiently leaky that that's not a problem. But if you're considering serious upgrades, you might want to look at the assembly to make sure you're not creating a problem for a house that was previously working okay. You guys have both relocated to places that are far from your current location. Any advice for folks who are considering making a move?
Well, when we moved to New York, we took a week and we went out there before and we looked at places to rent, and that was really helpful. I think it's hard to do some of that stuff, even with good online tools from, a couple thousand miles away. It was a bit easier when we moved back to Wisconsin. Obviously, it was during COVID, but we had been planning that for several months already, and we had an idea of building the house. So that was an easy part. But I think you have to give yourself some time to do it. And maybe people who make quick decisions can get away with doing things online and just looking at some pictures of properties and talking to a few friends who have already moved to there. But I think it's difficult to do it without being present in the area for at least a week or two.
Thoughts, Brian?
Amy and I aren't really quite normal people. We'd never been to, when we moved to South Carolina, we had never been there, and we never saw our apartment. We just rented it online and showed up on the first day of our lease. And so, but we rent, we signed a year-long lease, and we didn't know, we just kind of, if we had ended up staying down there, which if other life circumstances weren't what they were with our families, we may have done, I would have been, we had started to look for properties, and, after being there for a year or so, like, we had a much better understanding of the area, the building types, I would have known by that point where to look and what to consider, knowing that I would have been doing exactly what these folks are doing, which is wanting to buy something that, a fixer-upper that I could work on.
I would say if you can rent for a year or a few months, it's going to help you make a better decision on what to purchase. And ideally, you get to learn the neighborhood and your neighbors, immediate neighbors especially, because they can make your life miserable if it's not the, you know what I'm saying?
Especially if they own your driveway.
You see on social media all the time of people who are having trouble with their neighbors, and it would really affect the quality of your life. So I would want to make sure I lived in a place that was where I wanted to be. Recently, I was talking to a neighbor who's a real estate agent, and he was telling me locally that there is, as he described, a lot of houses that are lipstick on a pig. And he said optimistic pricing, I think, was the other phrase he tossed around. So there's always a risk of buying someone's bad house that they fixed up badly.
Someone's well-dressed pig.
You know what was really great about building a house?
You get none of that
ourselves. Well, you get that's great about it too. But this more has to do with the neighborhood. Amy and I built this house that we live in now, and we were on site for 6 months every day outside, and everyone stopped by to meet us. And we have more friends and know more people in this neighborhood. We had more friends and knew more people in this neighborhood after being in the house for a couple of months than we ever had in the neighborhood that we lived in for 20 years.
I will attest that home remodeling or building is a great way to meet your neighbors. Everyone is interested in what you're doing. They're often very supportive because they're like, wow, that's impressive, whatever it is. But yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Until you're trying to work and they're talking to you.
Yes, Patrick. Good
Saws are
point.
loud. Just pull the trigger on the saw.
What?
There were a few of those. I got to get back to work now. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by.